Hi, Marie. I'm Jaylene. I'm your medical assistant for today, and Dr. Fine has told me to go over your condition of hypertension, and I have some handouts for you here to take home and so you can educate yourself, and I'll go over them with you, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just gonna sanitize my hands, and then we'll get started.
Okay.
Okay. So first, I'm gonna go over what high blood pressure is. Do you know kind of what it is, or do you have any specific questions about it?
No.
No?
No, I've heard about it.
Okay. So blood pressure is the force of blood pushing against the blood vessel walls, and it's measured in millimeters of mercury. So mmHg is what you'll typically see. And you'll have two numbers when you measure it. The systolic is on the top, and then on the bottom is the diastolic. So high blood pressure means that the pressure in your arteries is higher than it should be. And typically the name you'll hear is high blood pressure or hypertension. It can go by either one. So normal blood pressure is below 120 on top and 80 on the bottom. So if either numbers are higher than that, then you have hypertension or high blood pressure.
Okay.
So not treating this could be really dangerous, and it can lead to a lot of different other conditions, and you're at risk for heart attack and stroke. So you make sure to get your blood pressure checked regularly, or even have a blood pressure cuff at home so you can measure yourself and manage your medications and everything like that. So there is different stages. So as I said, normal is going to be less than 120 for the systolic, and then less than 80 for the diastolic. And then elevated, which is a little higher but not at a dangerous level, is going to be for the systolic 120 to 129, and for the diastolic is still less than 80. And then stage 1 for hypertension, for the systolic, you're going to be in the range of 130 to 139, and then the diastolic will be 80 to 89.
Okay.
And then the stage 2 hypertension, your systolic is going to be 140 or higher, and then your diastolic is going to be 90 or higher. And then the last stage, which is hypertensive crisis, it's going to be your systolic is going to be higher than 180, and then your diastolic is going to be higher than 120.
Wow.
So there are some higher risks for developing high blood pressure, and increases of heart attack and stroke with that. Do you smoke at all?
Yes.
Okay. So that is definitely one risk. So I would advise, trying to quit and avoiding being around that. Do you exercise at all?
Not too much.
No. I would recommend increasing your exercise, maybe taking walks, or just doing some low intensity workouts to help with that. And then obviously your diet is one major thing. So what's your diet typically like?
I eat pretty much everything.
Okay. You don't have any restrictions, allergies to anything?
No.
Or like a vegetarian, pescatarian?
No.
Okay, that's great. So that makes it kind of easy. Okay, so I'll give you this handout.
Okay.
Do you have any questions about that?
Not right now, but I'll contact you.
Okay. Perfect. So I'm going to move on to the next handout, and this is going to be about your diet. So one of the major things is sodium. You should really limit your sodium when you have something like hypertension. So do you think you consume a lot of sodium in your diet that you know of?
Possibly, yeah.
Okay. So 1 teaspoon of salt actually contains 2,300 milligrams of sodium. So if you think about that in a lot of foods, it can add up pretty quickly.
Wow.
So the extra sodium in your bloodstream, what it does is it pulls water into your blood vessels, and this will increase the volume of your blood, inside your blood vessels, and that creates high blood pressure.
Oh.
So having that less sodium in your diet can really help your hypertension,
Okay.
and you'll be less likely to develop like heart disease or stroke. So the average American eats about 3,400 milligrams of sodium a day. So, and the American Heart Association recommends no more than 2,300 milligrams. So a lot of people overly intake their sodium. So it's something you really need to pay attention to.
Yeah. Wow.
So even cutting back by like 1,000 milligrams a day can improve a lot for your hypertension.
Okay.
Okay, so some of the sources of sodium is obviously like salt or stuff like MSG that you'll see in a lot of foods, baking soda, baking powder, disodium phosphate. So there's things you got to kind of look out for. And a lot of over-the-counter and prescription medications will also contain sodium.
Oh.
So it's something I'm sure you can discuss with the doctor.
Yeah.
And something you can look at if you're buying any over-the-counter medications. Do you eat a lot of like prepackaged or processed foods?
Yes.
Okay, so that's something that contains a lot of sodium typically. So something you should avoid. So there's some, okay, so some of the items that add a lot of sodium to your diet are things like bread and rolls, pizza, soup, sandwiches, which you wouldn't think holds sodium, but it can hide in there. And even like poultry or like cured meats and stuff like that, like lunch meat, can hold a lot of sodium. So some other sources of food that kind of hide sodium are like cheeses and buttermilk and frozen dinners, snack foods, condiments, stuff like pickles and seasonings and sauces. When you put sauce like ranch and soy sauce, steak sauce, can have a lot of sodium. So maybe trying to lessen the amount you put on your food or try to avoid them could help. And I know a lot of people have concerns about like flavor. When they limit their sodium, they think their food tastes bland.
Yeah.
So try to maybe flavor your food with stuff like lemon or lime or vinegar, or you can get a lot of salt-free seasonings as well.
Yes.
Do you think that you eat out a lot, or do you typically eat at home?
At home.
At home. Okay, well that's good, because eating out, a lot of stuff that they have in restaurants and stuff can contain a lot of sodium. So when you do eat out, just make sure you're paying attention. Usually, like on the menus, they'll even tell you how much sodium is in there.
Okay.
Okay. So with that, tips to cut sodium is basically what I said. So try to eat at home so you can control what's in the food. And then when you do go out, just pay attention to what kind of things that you're ordering and eating. So eating the right types of fat and avoiding the unhealthy ones can reduce buildup of plaque in your blood vessels. So not just salt, but fats can have a big impact on that. So stuff like unsaturated fat, fatty acids, trans fat. So things like olive oil and sunflower oil or anything like that. So recommended foods that you should eat is a lot of like grains, vegetables, fruit, milk, meat, fats and oils.
Yes.
But you should do them at a recommended amount. So for grains, try to eat like brown rice instead of white rice, or when you're eating breads and cereals, make sure they're made with like whole grains, and that can help a lot. For vegetables, make sure they're like highly colorful, a lot of greens and color to them, which can help. For fruits, make sure maybe fresh would probably be better than like canned, because that can contain a lot of salt or sugar. When you're eating stuff like meats, fish is really good, or lean cut beefs and pork and skinless poultry, stuff like that. Okay. Okay. So that's it on kind of what kind of diet you should take.
Oh, okay. That was very interesting. Thank you.
Do you have any questions on that?
No.
No?
No. I'll read it over again and try to do better.
So I'll hand that to
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, so the last handout that I have is kind of about high blood pressure and stroke. So when you have high blood pressure, you're at a very high risk for having a stroke. So it's really important to manage your high blood pressure and hypertension. So like we discussed before, quitting stuff like smoking, managing your weight and your diet can really help you there.
Okay.
So okay. So I kind of wanted to talk to you about paying attention to your food labels. Since your nutrition is a major part of this, you should know how to read labels. Are you familiar with food labels and how to read them?
Bit, not much.
Okay, so on the back of each food container, or most food containers, you're gonna see their nutrition facts, and that's usually what they're labeled as. So they'll kind of contain a serving size, the servings per container, your calories, fat, cholesterol, sodium, sugars, proteins, stuff like that, and it'll tell you exactly what's in the food. So for example, I have this chili with beef and beans here. So as you can see, the serving size is 1 cup, but in the container is about 2 servings. Okay. So if you eat the whole container, you're going over your normal serving size amount. And then if you look down to here, sodium is 870 milligrams, which is pretty high, and that's per serving. So that's 36% sodium. So this would be something maybe you would try to avoid, because it's processed and pre-prepared. So stuff like this you can like watch out for when you're at the grocery store. So some ways to use food labels is compare labels to similar foods. So to compare them to see kind of what is better, what has more sodium, what has less sodium. I know for like soy sauce, for example, there are alternatives. Like regular soy sauce has something like 930 milligrams of sodium, whereas you can get an alternative made from like a plant-based that has almost half of that sodium. So you could use that instead. Some other things you can do to improve your blood pressure is moderation of alcohol consumption. Are you someone who consumes alcohol on a regular basis?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So something like that, managing that and trying to reduce it greatly could help a lot. And then the DASH eating plan is something that you could research into, which is just a diet that's rich in fruits, vegetables, low fat, dairy, and reduced in fat. And it's made for someone who has hypertension and can follow that diet plan.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that's the last handout I have for you.
Interesting. All right.
Do you have any questions or comments or concerns that I went over with you at all?
No.
That's
I'm
it?
good.
Okay.
Okay, I'll try to do better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.